All right, welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports and a post-service on the Scott Plasma that I did a pre-service video on. Now, there was a lot of work done on this bike, and in situations like this, as a shop owner, I pretty much lose money because of all the time invested. You just can't bill the customer for all of it. It just will seem astronomical to the consumer, so you kind of eat some of the costs. But yeah, there was a lot to do on this bike. All right, so let's start from the front end. These two shifters, which I've never seen before, were so corroded. I mean, you can still see some of it there. There was so much corrosion down inside here and so much sweat accumulation. You know, the salt just crystallized all inside here and had bound up this. Now you could see that that's at least, I don't know, 2-3 mil, maybe more of space. Well, believe it or not, all of that was consumed or was taken up by all the sweat that was in there. The cables were corroded. The customer initially said, oh, I only get like 1 or 2 gears, nothing up here works. So in the previous video, I talked about how the cables were shredded here and the housing as well. So that definitely was a problem, but it wasn't until I started taking things apart that I realized that there was so much sweat encrusted underneath here that was physically binding up the shifters from moving. So took this all apart, cleaned it. I've left grease in there, hoping for it to be an element barrier so that doesn't happen again for him. The bar tape was obviously worn and just didn't look so great, so we replaced that. Working our way down, the headset bearings were completely corroded, so I'm gonna show you those here in a minute. The cables for the brake were corroded because all of this front end here where the customer was sweating, just all the sweat was coming down. In fact, the front wheel has just so much corrosion on it. This bike sits on a trainer, so it's just encrusted on there. So I'm not even going to work on that because he's not going to ride this bike with these wheels. So I just didn't even bother with either truing the wheels or anything like that, because as you can see, the spokes are just completely corroded. So that is obviously an issue for using these wheels on the road. They are a little out of true as well, and then you've got this additional layer of just corrosion, sweat, whatever. So yeah, so we replaced the bearings in the headset, so now that works really well. There was something rattling around inside the frame when I took everything apart, so I found that, I believe. It stopped rattling. I did get something that fell out. My biggest concern was, and still is, this front derailleur. Just the integrity of this front derailleur. It just seems compromised to me. It is shifting to the big ring, no problem, because that is a cable pull situation, right? You pull the cable. This is a friction. In case you don't know, the right-hand shifter is index. The left-hand shifter, which is for the front derailleur, is friction. And would you believe it? He even compromised a friction shifter, which is the simplest and easiest of all gear shifters. But the issue he has now is that we can pull this to the big ring, but when it drops to the little ring, it's about 2-3 mil that it doesn't go all the way. I've loosened this up significantly. I've lubed it. I've used all kinds of different solvents to try to free this up. And when I first started working on this bike, this did not move at all. It was just encrusted with so much sweat and corrosion. So I got it to move, so that's fine. But let me see if I can do this. Yeah, it's hard to show you, but the chain rubs in his climbing cog. I guess the first, let me see, I think it rubs on just the last two, but everywhere else it's fine. And you can push the derailleur in the rest of the way, but you're not going to do that while riding. We also replaced the bottom bracket because except for pedaling it hard, that was the only way to get the thing to move. And you can see there's just all this corrosion everywhere, all over everything. And I've tried to get most of it off, but it's just too much time. And the customer, in most cases, isn't willing to pay for all that time that it takes. So I got most of it off. There was a lot, but there's still some there. And it's too hard to get off without scratching off the finish of the actual the Dura-Ace finish. So that's the front end. The back end, we had an issue with the barrel adjuster here. So we had to replace that barrel adjuster because it was just completely corroded. The cable was seized inside of it. We didn't clean the cassette. We didn't do much with the cassette because this bike has been living on a trainer, so it's on a direct drive trainer, so that is not really an issue. So there's that. The other issue we had on the back end, and still kind of have, is that this adjuster here is completely seized in place, so it just does not move. And then this metal part here was seized, and it was so corroded that it actually broke apart. So as I was removing it. So what you'll see now, as I show you the individual parts, you're going to see how corroded that was. And so this is that part we were just talking about. So this particular fitting, this is from a 7800 Dura-Ace brake, but the one that I put into the frame, into the brake system, is from a 5700 105 brake, and it's the only one that is compatible. So you need this metal fitting. The plastic ones won't fit inside, so it's very hard to cannibalize another brake system to get the 7800 to work. Now keep in mind the 7800's been around 20 years, so it's very hard to find small parts for it. This was another one of the barrel adjusters that the cable fitting and everything was just seized to it, so could not be used. You could see here these cables just shredded, and you could just see all the corrosion on the housing. It just broke apart. So there's that corrosion on the cables, you can see that. And then the excessive amounts of lube, and the chain was completely worn out, sitting on a direct drive trainer. Oh, well, it's a trainer bike. I don't need to do any service to it. And that's how this chain was just completely worn out, but the cassette seems fine. Now, I took the bike for a ride and it doesn't seem to slip, so I guess the chain rings are fine. Once again, it was a direct drive trainer, so that rear wheel was not used, and so the cassette is fine. These are the headset bearings. Now, they were so corroded that I couldn't read the etchings on it for the size. And I scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed and tried to get these clean enough to get a little bit of the measurement of it. Couldn't, so I had to use a micrometer for that. And then the bottom bracket, with all the sweat, all the sweat just dripping down the frame, just except for pedaling hard, that bottom bracket was pretty much seized up. So yeah, so that's where we're at for this bike. Customer will be picking it up this afternoon. So I wanted to shoot a quick video that we were able to save it. So anyway, that is all for today. If you like these pre and post service videos, I am happy to keep doing them. It is a labor of love here at the shop to restore some of these bikes. And you know, a bike that's 20 years old, or let's just say 18, and he thinks it's a 2006 or 2007. So someone make a comment down below if you have an idea of what year this Scott Plasma is. But in my honest opinion, this bike shouldn't have ever been in that condition. And personally, the way I have the bike restored now, this is a bike I would definitely ride myself. It's just in great condition now that everything's been done to it. Obviously a different set of wheels and a front derailleur to solve the issue of it rubbing in the two climbing cogs, and then that's it. Everything else is great. Okay, anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you up the road.